In this exercise, you will be developing an understanding of what was happening in Northern Ireland between 1921 and 1969. 1921 is an important date, as that is the year that Northern Ireland was created, and 1969 is the year that the Troubles started in Northern Ireland. The skills that you'll be developing by completing this exercise are recording information and grouping information. You should first of all turn to page 9 in your workbook. On page 9, you will see there is a box at the top of the page with 4 titles in it. The first title is The Opening of a Northern Ireland Parliament, 1921, The Welfare State, 1945, 1950s IRA Campaign, and the formation of the Northern Ireland Civil Rights Association in 1967. In the first task, you will read information about 3 different events, and you will record 3 or 4 bullet points which summarise each event. For example, the first one has been completed as an example for you, and the information that has been recorded says King George opened the Northern Ireland Parliament in June 1921. James Craig was the first Prime Minister, and the Northern Ireland Parliament was controlled by the Unionists. You should now read the information about the welfare state. Once you've read this information, you should pick out 3 bullet points of information which summarise the reforms which welfare state brought and the impact that these reforms would have on people's lives in Northern Ireland. You should record your notes on page 9 of your workbook. You should now read the information about the 1950s IRA campaign. Once you've read the information, you should pick out 3 bullet points which summarise the information and explain why the 1950s IRA campaign failed. Once you've picked out this information, you should record your notes on page 9 of your workbook. Finally, you should read the information about the Northern Ireland Civil Rights Association and record 3 bullet points on page 9 of your workbook. Make sure that your bullet points include details about what the Northern Ireland Civil Rights Association was intended to do and the types of people who supported this organisation. Your next task is to sort the events at the bottom of page 9 into 3 different groups. The groups are political, social and economic. Political means the way in which a country is ruled or governed. Social means the way people live their life, their lifestyle, their housing and their healthcare. And economic means the way people earn money, they spend their money, the jobs they do and the standard of their living. You will need 3 different coloured pencils to complete this task. As you can see, I've used a red pen or pencil for the political statements, I've used a blue pen or pencil for the social statements, and I've used a black pen or pencil for the economic statements. I provided 3 examples. As you can see, the first example is of a political event, and it's the 1921 Government of Ireland Act, as it led to Northern Ireland being created and the Northern Ireland Parliament being set up, so it's all about the running of Northern Ireland. Your task now is to study the rest of the events and group them into the correct category by placing a red mark, a blue mark or a black mark beside each event. Some events may overlap, so you may have to put 2 or 3 colours in each box. In this next task, you're going to study 7 events which you've already looked at on page 9. And what you'll be asked to do is to plot on the living graph whether each event was a success or a failure for the Northern Ireland Parliament. An example has been completed for you. The example is that in 1921 the Unionist Northern Ireland Parliament was formed. This has been plotted 3/4 of the way up towards total success. The reason why it's been placed 3/4 of the way towards the top is because that 3/4 of the population of Northern Ireland were Unionist, and they would have agreed with this situation. They would have agreed with the Northern Ireland Parliament being open, and especially it being a Unionist Parliament, as they felt it would favour them. However, 1/4 of the population of Northern Ireland were nationalists, and they did not agree with Northern Ireland Parliament being opened, as they felt that Ireland should all be one. The next event on your living graph deals with people's health during the 1930s. If you flick back to page 9, you will see that it says during the 1930s there was a low standard of public health. Therefore, on your graph you should place the plot towards the bottom as a lack of success for the Northern Ireland Parliament, like so. You should now use the information on page 9 to complete the rest of the plots on your living graph. Remember that Northern Ireland did have a 3/4 Unionist population and a 1/4 nationalist population, and this will impact where you place your plots on your living graph. Once you've placed all your plots on your living graph, you should join the plots up, as this will clearly show where the successes and the failures lie. Finally, to complete your homework, at the bottom you should explain which area you think the Northern Ireland Parliament had the biggest success in, and also which area you think the Northern Ireland Parliament had the least area of success in. Your homework is now complete. Thank you very much for completing it, and if you have any questions or there are any things that you did not understand fully, please make sure you speak to your teacher in your next history class. Thanks again.